Yeah, so let me read Luke chapter 10, verse 38. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him, right? So Jesus and his disciples were visiting Martha and Mary, right? She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. So, yeah, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. This is a very familiar passage, but recently, as I was reading this passage, yeah, during one of the parents' prayer, this was preached as the devotion message. Um, there were new insights that just came to me, right? And it's really quite amazing how, I mean, yeah, Jesus was visiting Martha and Mary, and Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus. And in some sense, I understand this, right? Because when you receive guests, there needs to be somebody who's there receiving the guests, somebody who's there communicating with the guests, listening to the guests, talking to them. And Mary was doing just that, right? Talking and listening to Jesus, being with the guests, Jesus and the disciples. Um, but Mary was the host. You notice it was Mary who opened the home to him. Uh, but notice this, Mary was what? Distracted. But she allowed the preparations to distract her. So yes, it was good that she opened her home to Jesus. I think that's a wonderful thing. But she was distracted by, oh, now that Jesus is in my home, I need to do this, I need to do that. And I wonder sometimes whether after we open our hearts to Jesus, right, and we allow Jesus to come in and Jesus to yeah, we open our hearts to Jesus, Jesus come in, and as Christians, sometimes we get distracted by so many things. Like we get distracted by, oh, I need to do this. God, I need to serve you in this way. I need to go here, go there, do this, do that. And sometimes we get distracted by the good things such that we don't do the God things. Let me say that again. Sometimes we get distracted by the good things, right? Martha uh, preparing, uh, making preparations for Jesus. That's a good thing, but she was distracted by it, right? So sometimes we get distracted by the good things for the yeah, and that distracts us from the God things, and that pulled her attention away. And so Martha, right? So now if we can imagine ourselves to be Martha, I mean, some of us we may be hosting people during this Chinese New Year. And even right now, some of us may be thinking, oh yeah, I need to do this, I need to do that. I mean, Pam and we have, I think our calendars are like almost full. Like this day, we have this, my sister's family and this Chinese family, they're going to join us. This other day, my mom's side is going to join us and that kind of thing. And we are hosting them and we need to do preparations and yeah, what food do we need to prepare and that kind of thing. But even as we think about that, may we not be distracted by the preparations, but focus on Jesus, even amidst the preparations. I'm not saying that the preparations not be made. I'm just saying that as we prepare, our eyes should be focused on Jesus. So I know some people they they uh they dichotomize doing and being, and they say it's more important to be than to do. So Mary is being, right? She's being a faithful disciple, a faithful follower of Jesus, sitting at Jesus' feet. And while Martha is doing. And in some sense, it's true. It's more important to be than to do, right? You want to be a faithful follower of Jesus. We do not want to be a headless chicken running around doing without so our hands and feet are everywhere, but our hearts are in the wrong place, right? So I would say in some sense it's more important our hearts, the being has to be right. Our hearts has to be at the right place, and then from our hearts, our hands and our feet flow from there. But I have to say this: the doing is important as well. The preparations need to be made, right? We have hosted people before. We know that preparations have to be made. Recently, Pam and I, we have been watching this series. I don't know whether some of y'all know, and I would like to encourage you to watch the series. It's called The Chosen, right? You can you can watch it online. You can search it. The Chosen is actually the story of Jesus, the story of Jesus. You can even download the app and you can watch the series for free. I think right now it's until season 6. And Pam and I, we are at season 3. And I was sharing with my friend who likes to watch Korean dramas, right? I think some of y'all like to watch Korean drama lah, or Chinese shows, watch Netflix. There is a time for rest, but I'd like to encourage you during this time of Lent, right? 18th of February, maybe you can start watching The Chosen. And it's really quite amazing. There were some episodes whereby I'll be touched by God, I'll tear. And it's quite interesting the perspective of the script writer, right? The end of season 2 and beginning of season 3 is the mouth the Sermon on the Mount. It was quite interesting. What they showed is not in the Bible, but they showed how much preparations the disciples had to make for the Sermon on the Mount. So I find it is really quite an interesting take that the script writer has an interesting perspective that he had. The disciples, they were going around and they actually prepared flyers. It was quite interesting to give out. And yeah, it made me think, yeah, it's true. How did the thousands of people know that they were having this sermon at this mount? And so the chosen showed the disciples going out. And it also showed Jesus preparing for the sermon. Really interesting. And in some sense, it may be true, right? Not just him preparing or to pray with God, but he was preparing, he was talking with Matthew, right? So the Sermon on the Mount is found in Matthew, and he was just discussing with Matthew his sermon points and that kind of thing. And I found that interesting. And so preparations is important. And if you notice over here, I highlighted the word do. What does Mary say? Mary says to Jesus, "Don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself?" And over here, Martha is scolding Jesus. "Don't you care? God, Jesus, where are your eyes? Can't you, can't you see? Can't you see what's happening? I'm here so busy, and you allow my my sister to continue doing this, right? While my sister should be doing other things, doing more important things over here, preparing all this work." But I'd like to highlight another word, do, over here. And not in this passage, but if you look at the verse, just before in verse 37, what does Jesus say? Jesus told the expert in the law, go and do likewise. So again, being is important, but I would like to say that doing is also very important. In fact, if you are not doing correctly, then I question your being. I say that again. If your hands and your feet are not doing the works of God, I question your heart. Right? In James, it's very clear. Right? You can have faith, but if you're not doing, then I question your faith. Right? Even the evil ones, the demons believe, right? They believe in Jesus, but the thing is they don't do. So we need to do. We need to have that faith in our, we need to know Jesus in our minds. We need to believe him in our hearts, and we need to do with our hands and feet. So the doing is important. And what is this passage over here? That Jesus is saying, go and do likewise. It's the story of the Good Samaritan, the parable of the Good Samaritan, whereby the Jesus is saying which of the three, right? Is it the Levite, the priest, or the Samaritan who was a neighbor to the man who fell in the hands of the robbers? Right? And the expert in the law replied correctly, the one who had mercy on him. He couldn't even say the Samaritan. Why? Because as a Jew, the expert in the law hated the Samaritans. Hated the Samaritans. He couldn't even bring himself to say, oh, it's the Samaritan. He said, the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus said, go and do likewise. Go and love our neighbors likewise. And you notice over here, I want to point out that as Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus, Mary was breaking boundaries. And that's why we sang the song earlier on, Break Every Chain. Mary was breaking the boundary, was breaking gender boundaries. Because usually the rabbis, they will be teaching male disciples. And yeah, as we watch The Chosen, one thing that the Pharisees were really unhappy with Jesus. How can there be female followers following Jesus? Right? And that's who Jesus is. Jesus is into breaking boundaries, right? He is there not just to witness and minister to male people, he's there to minister to male disciples, to call them to follow him. And he also, even in his parable, he's breaking boundaries as well, right? Racial boundaries, breaking the boundaries between Jews and Gentiles. And in that story, the hero is the Samaritan. The Samaritan who let everything down to love the neighbor. And over here we see Mary letting everything down, stopping everything to love Jesus. And I think sometimes that's what we may need to do. Sometimes we need to PAP, pause and pray. We let everything down and we pause and pray. We pause and be with Jesus. We pause and be with our neighbors. We pause and love God and love our neighbors. Are we willing to let the maybe even good things down? Right? Sometimes we have our schedules are filled with good things. I mean, if you think of the priests and the Levites rushing to somewhere, they may have good things happening, right? They may be rushing to preach somewhere, rushing to do ministry somewhere, rushing to do a visitation somewhere. Maybe they had a meeting, important meeting somewhere, and that's why they had no time for the man who fell into the hand of the robbers. But because of rushing to do the good thing, they had no time for the God thing. And so I'd like to encourage us this Lunar New Year, this Lent, will we not rush? Will we look at our schedules again? And if something comes up, we ask ourselves, is this thing that comes up, is it a God thing? If it's a God thing, will we pause and pray and even set the good things aside for the God thing? Yeah, so it's really amazing, right? How the parallel, the Samaritan and Mary, they broke boundaries. It's can you imagine the Samaritan? How does he feel about the Jews? Imagine yourself to be the Samaritan right now, and you see your enemy lying down there, lying down there. Your enemy, this person who can't even call you a Samaritan, this person who hates you so much. Jews will not even pass through Samaria. They will take a long route away from from Samaria just to get to Jerusalem. They'll take few days more. Why? Because they hated them so much. That was the amount of hate that they had. And as a Samaritan now, you see your enemy there. How would you feel? Would you just hurry along? Would you curse that person? Would you even spit on a person? How would you if right now, even right now, today, you walk out and you see your enemy before you? What will you do? This Lunar New Year, there may be times whereby we see people that we don't like. How would we feel? And this Samaritan, he doesn't see his enemy. He sees the God thing that needs to be done. He sees a person that needs to be loved. He sees a person in need. And so the Samaritan helps the person in need. Mary sees Jesus and just sits at his feet. And let's not be like Martha, scolding Jesus. I mean, I think of myself. There are times whereby I scold God. Well, recently, those of y'all at Burnout Methodist Church, y'all will know I was sharing about how when Eileen cancer relapsed, I scolded God. Right? God, what are you doing? Don't you even know what you're doing? Isn't it better for Eileen to be healed and testify for you? But God knows better. Right? And so what does Jesus say? Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. So, what's the issue with Martha? She was distracted, she was worried, but what she needed to do is to choose what is better. And again, I say, doing is also important, but you can do and be at the same time, just like what the Samaritan was doing. The Samaritan was doing. He was loving his neighbor. He was putting the Jew who needed help on the donkey, bringing the person to the inn and everything. He was doing a lot of things. He was loving the neighbor. But as he was doing, he was also being a loving neighbor as well. So we can do and be at the same time. Martha could have been doing the preparations and also being a loving disciple, being a loving host, right? And as she's preparing, she can also be praying and focusing on Jesus as well. Some of us, as we are hosting Chinese New Year, we can be focusing on Jesus. We can be praying for our guests that are coming, and that's what I would like to encourage all of us. Don't be worried and distracted. And some of us, 2026 may be a year of worries and distractions, many work, many issues. Um, and yeah, we are just worried and distracted by many things. And yeah, I noticed that it's really 9:17. I think we should pray.